Josh, I'd love to hear your side of the story. So tell us about you, your life growing up, and when the topic of how you were conceived came into picture.
Sure. Well, I don't have any memories of riding the Grady bus, even though I probably did. I was born in 88, which was 1 year after it says on Dr. Shapiro's website that he was first inspired through a project to go into reproductive medicine as a med student. Put that together later. It took me until 2019 to put that together. But when I was 31 years old, my mother called me and she was emotional and said she had something to tell me and she didn't want it to affect our relationship. And I had no idea. I mean, this was a very strange call coming from her. I hadn't gotten many like it. And so I thought this must be some pretty big news. I was ultimately relieved. You know, she'd committed no crimes and nothing terrible had happened. And she said, your dad is not your biological father. And I was raised as an only child with, two-parent household. We lived in a residential neighborhood, suburban neighborhood up in Cobb County in Georgia, so Metro Atlanta. And I had gone to school and gone to college and gone to law school and come back to Atlanta and started practicing. And then all of a sudden she drops this on me. But, I thought at first, that's okay. I'm not too concerned about this. I'm not angry. I mean, people find out stuff like this all the time. And it's just not that weird. That was my first reaction on the phone call with her. And then it started to set in that I actually was disoriented and I was angry. And I was angry at my parents because it felt like, there's lies that you tell that are, affirmative, like you make a misstatement. And then there's what the law would call material omissions, which is failure to say something that the person that you failed to say it to would consider to be really important information that would affect their decision making. And so over the weeks and months following that disclosure, well, first thing I did was I said, I'm getting 23andMe, Mom, rest in peace, 23andMe. But I said, I'm going to sign up for the Cadillac service and I want you to pay for it. And I didn't say it in that friendly of a way, and she said, aye. I mean, she agreed. She knew I was upset and hurt. I think she Zelled me the like $400 or whatever it was. And so then I got my DNA results and it said, boom, you're 47% Ashkenazi, Jewish from, certain parts of Europe. Thought, okay, interesting. And I was reading all about the various genetic predispositions and whatnot. But then there's also a messaging feature, there was on 23andMe, where you could see your family members who are also on the app and you could send them a message. And so you got to give it up to the app designers for 23andMe for knowing a little bit of user interface and the human element, because when you click on see your family members, it says, are you sure? It gives you one final to just confirm that this isn't some grave error that you're about to commit.
Right.
I raced through as soon as I could spit in the tube and get the results back. I mean, it was probably only 2 or 3 weeks after the initial disclosure that I had the results on my phone, and I click, yes, I want to see. And then it gives me a name. Daniel Shapiro. At the time, I thought probably pronounced Shapiro. It turns out I was wrong. 47% match, 50%, whatever the DNA match was. And it said father. And I was able to reach out to him through the app. And I honestly didn't know quite what to say. I mean, how do you start a conversation like that? I mean, I'm 31 years old, and I guess it may have told me his age, that he was in his late 50s at the time. But I reached out and I said, hello, I am ready to meet you. And that's all I put in the message. And with periods, no exclamation points. It was like a work email, very, very to the point. And I mean, look, I didn't know who would be on the other end of it, really. And so I just kind of put it out there like a message in a bottle. I will say I did have friends who have donor conceived children, and they're sort of like my guides through all of this emotionally and practically to get me up to speed on what all of this was about. Because my mom, I didn't even mention the conversation with my mom. She made clear it wasn't anything weird or untoward. It was just that, we were having trouble conceiving and
Right.
We used the technology available, and it was the 80s and we didn't know whether to tell you or not. We figured we didn't have to tell you. We didn't think it was important, and we apologized. Right. And my dad was still alive at the time. And, I think he also was apologetic via my mom.